you're a greater person than the both of us.
Yes, you're right, Kelker. We are supposed to be moving on to the topic of races, which is, what races are in your world, where would they live, and pretty much how well do they interact with the others. The idea of sentient plant creatures in your world is slightly terrifying, but at the same time, I imagine they don't have a very good relationship.
I didn't say that.
I'm thinking sentience.
I guess the sentience, that would go something along the lines of dryads. Yeah. And there's this. Oh, I can't remember the name of it, but there's a 5e homebrew race that I saw, and I'm gonna hate myself for saying this on D&D Wiki that was not broken. And I'm gonna say this now, and Ian, I hope you put some bold text. Don't use D&D Wiki.
Oh God, no! It's
just save yourself.
I'm not saying it's a bad website, but it's
no. So it's not a bad website. No one playtests their shit, and everything is broken. I've seen first level characters who have immunity to shit. It's what? Why?
Yeah, take everything on D&D Wiki with a grain of salt.
Oh, everything. Yes. You'll find a shiny gem. You'll find a shiny gem in the vast mile of crap.
Oh God, I remember.
And it's not to say they a lot of that masses of crap. They aren't bad ideas per se. It's just balanced so shittily. You're gonna have to work on it a lot for it to make sense or something.
Yeah,
in a way that's balanced.
It's poor execution on a really good idea.
When you get something off D&D Wiki, is what I'm gonna say is be prepared to do extra work for it.
Oh yeah.
Oh God, I remember when.
Sorry, D&D Wiki.
Was it the samurai classes were first starting appearing on there for 5e, and I'm looking at them and this is bad.
Oh yeah, all the things where it's in a single swipe you launch a solid air blast 30 feet forward, and it does 2d10 damage. And you're at third level, how is this acceptable?
Yeah, no.
I understand I understand mages doing this because guess what? They're squishy. I'm an armored tank.
But with all the different races, cultures, let's think. Everyone has the standard elves, dwarves, humans, orcs, goblins. What else? Halflings, tieflings, dragonborn now. If I see another drow race, I'm going to set them on fire.
See, that's the other thing that Goliath are really fun. I really enjoy all the races. Have fun with it. You don't have to follow the stereotypical race. Sure, elves live a long time. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're intelligent. I think one of the favorite things I saw was a group of elves that don't understand the concept of time. So it's they hire a bunch of humans to build themselves a sword, and they come back 60 years later, and it's dude, where's my sword? It's only been 60 years, and it's we sold that to some other guy. We had that thing done in for 30 years, dude. And the other thing was where it's oh, I missed the cafe that was here only
200 years ago.
Only 90 years ago. I wonder what happened to it. It's we had 7 wars since then.
7 wars.
People died. The shop got destroyed. It got rebuilt. Yep. Someone else took over.
Several times.
Yeah. I guess my viewpoint on races is a lot of the information that let's say the player's handbook or anything else is going to give you, that's Faerun lore.
Yeah.
So feel free to mix it up as you see fit in your own world, because that's just Faerun lore. So you can really do as you please.
Oh, the best thing I saw was a post that why is it in every TV show with fantasy stuff, elves have a very posh British accent? No, 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 no. We're gonna change it to a Southern gentleman. And someone went, all right, listen, I hear you and I love it. But think about this: Brooklyn elves. Hey, I'm casting
I don't know. I
here.
like that. I like.
Hey, I'm casting here. What's the big
I guess 'cause I am a
idea?
southerner.
And then
I guess because I am a southerner, I like the southern elf, the southern gentleman. Now hold on. Now listen here. Now, son, you ain't letting me finish. I am trying to explain to you the arcane mechanism in which that I am bestowing to you.
my other favorite was Screw Doors being from Scotland, being from Minnesota. Oh, yeah, hi, we're from Minnesota.
Oh, don't you know?
Man, that's close to my heart. That's close to my heart. Growing up in Illinois, especially when you're closer to like the Iowa-Wisconsin borders, you get lots of Minnesotans.
Although my other one of the ones that I really want to see now is Surfer Bro Californian halflings. Because all they do is eat and smoke and ride the gnarly ways, man, and are like super in tune with nature.
Yeah, I just love nature, man. Like, go catch a wave, dude. He's like 3
Go
feet
catch
tall.
a wave.
It's like he's sitting there with you think he's like paying attention, but he's got like his sunglasses on, and then all of a sudden he finally speaks. It's like, dude, I'm sorry, what?
It's like, did anything make sense to you? I'm sorry, man. Like I zoned out.
Insert devil's lettuce like smoking thing there. That's what he's doing. He's like
Speaking
leaning
of
back,
devils,
just lights up. Just sorry, what? You're like trying to get a quest from him.
speaking of devils, tieflings. Tieflings oftentimes don't. So here's the thing: humans, elves, and dwarves always have societies. Halflings just kind of exist, as do tieflings. No. Give them their own societies, man. Oh, gnomes. We can't forget gnomes.
The only thing I think for tieflings, and this is where I'm gonna kind of like disagree a little bit, it's like they're randomly born amongst humans and like things like that, aren't they? So like,
I mean, first of all, it depends on the person's own lore. But if I remember
Yeah.
correctly, it is sort of like the half spawn between a child and a devil. But the other thing too is actually fire genasi plus human actually creates a tiefling spawn.
oh,
Yeah, I got bored one time and started reading the in between on the races. That was bad. But no, so again, depends on the person's own lore. But like, I do feel like there would be at some point a group of tieflings who are like, you know what, we're gonna make our own.
Which would make
town.
sense because tieflings.
yeah, where they like make like a safe
Yeah.
haven or something.
Because tieflings are
Yeah.
often very
Sort of like
shunned and like persecuted against, even if they've done no wrong.
oh, what's that place that Magneto built?
Genosha.
That was for all the mutants. Genosha, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, have a tiefling Genosha. And then have the Azamars
or like
kick the door
what the
in.
Inhumans did.
There's another group of individuals, the Azamar. Oof.
Oh yeah, the Azamar.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
actually, Ian, I like what you did. That the moonstones in that one city.
Oh yeah. We need to stop having pregnant women work things. Why? Because we keep getting Azamar.
I won't lie. Azamar have slight favoritism because I think they were like when I first like played like my first 5e game, Azamar was the first race I played, and I instantly fell in love with Azamar. Oh my god, they were awesome.
They are really good.
They're the reason I fell in love with Warlocks. I know Warlocks are underpowered and everyone throws shit at them.
But
Stop throwing stones when you're in a glass house. All right.
underpowered.
Your class has issues too.
Underpowered. You get your
I'll
spells
tell you
back
why.
on a short rest.
Yeah, and you have to convince the rest of your party to have that short rest. And you only have 2 of those spells. And they go like that. And everyone calls them a one-trick pony because of Eldritch Blast. Listen, I understand. They're not that underpowered. It's just
Every class has a one trick.
I've had arguments.
I mean, I'm really not gonna say shit because my favorite class is Bard. So like,
Oh, so you must be a horny.
I'm irrelevant in this. I'm completely irrelevant.
Oh, so you must be producing everything, huh?
No,
I mean,
you've had a conversation with me. Do you really think, with how much I stutter and laugh at everything, I'm gonna be able to...
I mean, you seduced Magnus.
Oh my.
What?
But yes.
That's races. Have fun interactions. I know in your world, Ian, goblins are not stupid.
It's because they're away from each other. I figured the way it is so long as they're not in a tribal kind of setting, they don't revert back to their old ways. So they try and find, that way that makes survival best for them as an individual. So kind of interacting and learning is essentially their best way of survival. So long as you've got them in small numbers, they're actually rather useful and easy to work with. But once they get into larger numbers, say like 20 to 30 in a group, then it starts getting chaotic. That's the way I figured it, because it makes sense with goblins. As same could be said for any of the other races, and partially because I subscribe to the idea that an individual is smart, but once you get a group together, things start getting stupid. So you could even have...
And that can go for anything. I mean, look at us.
Yeah. That's fair. I mean, you could even have like that with elves, most people are like, they mostly only see like 1 or 2 elves in their lifetime, and they think, they're rather intelligent. They're, maybe a little stuck up, but, they're very graceful and so on. But if you get a whole group of elves together, you feel like you're constantly being looked down like you're a gnat or something, because the elves feel like they have to essentially keep appearances with each other, so they treat everyone else that's not an elf like shit.
Mm-hmm.
But one-on-one, I don't think that.
I mean, again, it also depends on the lore too.
Yeah.
Because I mean, elves are, that is the traditional way of displaying elves, which I have no problem playing or NPCing a stuck-up narcissistic a-hole when I have to. It happens to be quite fun. But it all depends on the thing. But one of the also major key things is interaction with other races. Elves have traditionally not been hated, but they have a grudge match with dwarves, I feel like, always. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a world where, like, elves and dwarves, it's not that they don't get along, they just try to outdo one another.
Oh, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's kind of the better way of handling that traditional relationship, that they could have at one point had, like, what's the term, like a blood feud with them, but they've long since ago put that to rest. And now they're not.
It's like a rivalry.
They're more rivals, and they're kind of friends, but they still prefer.
Hey, you think you can smith? I can smith better. I can smith anything better than you. No, you can't.
Like, you ask a dwarf, like, about, like, an elf or something, he's gonna be like, oh, damn elves, or something like that. But, like, later, like, you see him, like, playing cards with the motherfuckers, They don't care.
Well, I always imagine dwarves have to, like, because of the way they are, they constantly are, like, worried as to how other people see them. So they're always that gruff and, like, stony appearance, but, like, deep inside, they're, like, all sorts of, like, soft. and only certain people get to see that softness.
Hmm.
And it's only for a moment, because right after that, they're going to punch you to, like, reaffirm that they're a hard ass.
Oh, that was so
You gotta
heartwarming.
keep that stone cold kind of thing
Oh,
going
that's
for
so heartwarming. Come here so I can break your legs.
him. And now he's back.
Yeah, but like, here's the other thing too: is just because you are of the same, race, doesn't mean that you're going to be friends. Drow and Duergar are the greatest example of that. But I've had a lot of fun where like it also comes down to location. If two races haven't interacted, it honestly comes off of how they present themselves. So like if one race is coming in full suits of metal, fully armed, just marching forth, you're going to perceive them as a threat, and your first instinct is going to be, prepare for the worst. Attempt peaceful negotiations, but prepare for the worst. And I had one point where it was one world where high elves lived in cities and whatnot, and they dared not go into the forest because their wood elf brethren would murder the shit out of them. Like,
In my world,
a threat would be like
sorry.
a high elf pinned to a tree, and like it would be thorny brambles basically doing just like hanging them as if they were on a cross.
Oh damn.
Yeah, no, it was a war, and I had a lot of fun being brutal and descriptive, and all my players being like, "I think you need to see a therapist." It's like, this is therapy.
Yeah, that's true though. Like in my world, Karyamira, all the elves hate each other. Every single kind. They all hate each other.
You also had a really fun thing with the Seeds of Golthius game that we played, where
Oh,
that the city we're in used to be an elvish city that got taken over by humans, but I'm gonna let you continue because this was your world.
yeah. In that city, I think it's called Lancaster.
Yeah,
It was previously an elvish capital. I think it was High Elves, and it was taken over by a human king during a war. However, he never kicked out any of the civilian elves that lived there. Some left, some stayed, and then lots of humans came in as they do. He moved his capital there, and so now it's like one of the only big like human elf kind of cities that you're gonna find.
And you also described it like he didn't tear down the buildings; he just incorporated the elvish architecture, which is brilliant. In wartime, it makes sense that you would destroy stuff and whatnot, but like you then have to rebuild it, and like I'd rather just take the building.
Yeah, the thing about the king was, and that's just the king's personality himself coming out. He didn't hate elves, and so he wasn't going to desecrate or burn anything. They were just in a war because, well, things happened. But that doesn't mean he hated them, like it was just, how it was. And so he still, like, out of respect, kept a lot of the, like, buildings and stuff and, like, fixed up what was broken and just, integrated.
Yeah.
But I think that's also a very key thing when planning out the interactions with other races is like how deep rooted is some of their their hatred towards other races, or is their hatred based upon purely what benefits which group more? Like, for your instance, from what it sounds like, the humans benefited the most from taking the city, but at no point did they hate the elves for it. It was what was beneficial for them. But I'm sure the elves...
They were still going to watch out for their own more than they were going to watch out for the elves, but they still have...
Meanwhile, the elves, I'm pretty sure, weren't too happy with it.
No, they weren't happy at all. And, like, the ones that stayed were a lot of the, like, hard-ass, like, this is where I've been my whole life, I'm not leaving, or, like, they were, like, older or something like that. But now, as generations have passed...
built this house.
Yeah, but like, as generations go down, just kind of like they just don't care as much.
Hmm.
Like,
That's
that's history.
that's the other thing. Other traditional things is you don't ever really see anyone hating halflings. Like, no one
Yeah.
hates halflings. They find them annoying at times, but no one's like, God, those stupid halflings. Ugh, I just want to
Yeah.
murder them.
But the reason why is they mind their business. They
Oh,
aren't
yeah.
trying to start fights with anybody because they just don't care. They're like living their best lives, doing some farming and smoking weed and shit.
I feel like that's
from a
canon.
traditional thing. Like,
It is.
from a traditional thing. I mean, it's okay. So if you read the little blurb on the halfling race in the PHB, is that they don't have their own societies and that they kind of just wander wherever. Often hold housing taverns and just being general good house guests and whatnot. I need to stop reading books. Um, but like a really fun thing is to make your own version of the Shire from Lord of the Rings. Because I mean, why would halflings not do that? Halflings would totally all band together and make a awesome town out of hills, and hills first of all make excellent defensible areas, and two,
Yeah.
you can have plenty of grassland to farm stuff, and it'd be a great place to make your own little town, and normal sized people are gonna have a hard time staying over. But it's don't be afraid to make societies based solely around one race, because I mean that happens. I mean, we have areas in New York called Chinatown, and it's just you go to where you're where people who are, God, I'm gonna sound like a racist. You go to your people. You go to the people who share common ancestry or share the common ideals, and you go to them because it's a defense
Or like
mechanism.
that culture because
Yeah,
it's like a safe
yeah,
space to
it's
you.
that's what it is.
Like
You
it's
go to
what
that
you
culture
know.
because it's familiar, it's a safe space, it's everything. I feel like I'm trying to dig myself out of a hole and I'm just digging deeper, but whatever. I stand by my words.
But
No, I think people would
yeah,
understand what you're
and
saying.
not to mention, I do like the idea that halflings have their own place because if I recall, one of their big things is they get wanderlust and they'll just like go off and
Oh yeah.
leave town for like 2 to 6, maybe 10 years, but then they come right back because that's what they do.
Mhm.
So the idea that they,
Yeah,
Hmm?
like how I did.
I was,
Go ahead,
I was,
Ian. Go ahead,
I was
Ian.
going to say, so
Finish
the
your
idea
thought.
that that they have a place to call theirs that no one else technically owns. I don't think they would have like, oh, this is my house, this is your house, or something. It'd just be like one giant communal kind of like neighborhood or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like how I did it in Caria Mira is there is a lot of like, like little halfling like villages and stuff like that. But the most common traveling caravan you're gonna see, like wagons and things like that, is halflings. And like some like won't take the main roads or like things like that. They'll take little roads, but you'll see like little like caravan houses with like like pulling like two little donkeys or pulling it or something like that. And there's like a little group of halflings in there just exploring together.
Uh, one of my favorite halfling sub races are the Ghostwise halflings, because they talk telepathically, and to actually speak aloud is kind of taboo, in the sense that like it's considered socially impolite to talk out loud because of telepathy, and it makes it really fun when people enter like a really short town, and like they see people and no one's talking to one another, but they like are doing tasks that clearly require instruction, and it's like, what's going on? And then they'll walk over,
Yeah.
and the Ghostwise halflings are like one of the actual few halflings I think that like in historical things are actually kind of mean. Like they look like you'll approach one, you're like, hey, and they'll be like, what do you want? And you're like, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's cool.
Mm.
I've never really implemented
Yeah,
Ghostwise?
Ghostwise
Uh,
halflings.
Ghost? Yeah, I've never really like learned a lot about them. So like I've
They're
always
not
gone with like Lightfoots and stuff
they're
like
not
that.
on the official PHP, but I think they are either Unearthed Arcana or I found one really nice homebrew version of them, and I love them. Oh, they're so good.
There is another type of race that we should also cover with when all these main races, these player races. That's the monster races.
Uh,
Oh yeah.
Because think about it, what's a world without a little bit of danger?
all right, so
Yeah, where would the different monsters be in your world? Yeah,
we
that's
also have to define what's monstrous because I've had worlds where Dragonborn were considered monstrous because they are reptilian-ish and therefore
Mhm.
are scary because also they breathe fire and acid and poison and cold and lightning. Mommy.
There's bears and dragons and oh my.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, that's a good question. What would we consider monstrous? Definitely,
I think standard ones: orcs, kobold, goblins, hobgoblin, bug.
yeah, those were definitely considered monstrous. They're humanoid enough to where they can develop their own society, but as far as having a large, thriving city, I don't see that happening. Not without someone else
I mean,
pulling
Yeah.
strings.
that, or again, it depends on your world on how intelligent they are. Because I mean, again, to pull from other works of fiction, was it The Hobbit where like there's that like really overly grotesque fat goblin king and like
Yes,
they have like this humongous underground city full of goblins?
yes, it was The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's just you could have something like that where they're essentially just dwarves that are less attractive.
Yeah, or like what's it called in Skyrim? Blackreach,
Oh God, I
you
hate
know?
Blackreach.
Things
I
like
have to go
that.
through there one more time.
I hate it, but I love it, you know? Just fucking decapitates you.
Speaking of races, or speaking of Khajiit, Tabaxi.
Tabaxi!
I'm not gonna lie, I have always viewed them, if you make them a society, Egyptian.
That's kind of what I did.
That's cool.
Which I had one friend who was like, "Oh yeah, I'm making the Tabaxi." I almost said Khajiit there. I'm making the Tabaxi, an Egyptian style army, and I immediately told him how to run his squads. And I was like, "I'm really sorry about that." He's like, "No, no, 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 I'm taking notes. Continue." Because like the whole thing about them is Tabaxis. If they are a society, their main tactic would be hit and run.
Oh yeah.
They have a natural speed. They would utilize that to their ability. They would come in really quick, do damage, and then immediately pull back.
Mm. God, their speed gets broken sometimes in some games, and I'm just like staring at the numbers. I'm like, come on, really?
Oh yeah, no, I think I'm the one who showed it to both of you. I broke like Mach 1
Oh.
by running.
I don't remember, but I do believe you.
Oh, okay, no,
Because
so
like you can really go crazy with a Tabaxi, especially when it comes to their speed.
I'm the person who I do these things called how do I break the game today puzzles. I've gotten plus 40 initiative. I've broken Mach 1 with speed. I've gotten 22 attacks. Oh, by the way, all this is legal. No homebrew BS. All of it legal.
I'd like to point out you also
Oh.
made the Eldritch Gatling gun, so
That's right. I built the Eldritch Crank gun.
just gonna sit here and just be like, why God, why did you?
I feel like it's to bring in anime. I feel like it's one of those anime spells where like they throw up that like massive magic circle and like it just creates a bunch of minor magic circles that all just.
Oh yeah, yeah.
If you've ever seen the Irregular at Magic High School, it's the guy when he fires the pistol and it creates all the little circles that fire a beam. Oh,
Oh, I haven't seen that one, but I
I
have heard of it.
haven't even heard of that, but I guess that's because I'm super picky on anime. So
holy shit, we went on a tangent. Races.
like I said, I'm just gonna cut this whole section out into its own little
Races.
blurb.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. We were talking about the monstrous races. I really like kobolds. I'm not gonna lie. I
Trap
love
happy
kobolds.
little dragons.
No, so I another YouTube group, WebDM, and I've loved their idea ever since I listened to it. You have dragonborns on the top of the hierarchy, so they're all the nobles. You have then lizard men as the general work public, and then you have the kobolds who are just slaves.
Ooh.
I mean, it would make sense not only size wise, but also power wise.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see.
So like dragonborn would be like officers in the military and the nobility and the government. Lizard folk did, all the smithing or most of the smithing and whatnot, and they would be the main force in the army. Kobolds were house servants.
I will point out that kobolds.
I like that. Or they could be like little like I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. Continue.
I was gonna say kobolds reproduce very quickly since they lay clutches of eggs. So
Also, like what I will complain is that the kobold race and the Volo's Guide really weak in my opinion.
yeah, unfortunately, but
I haven't really looked at it too much, and nobody's like asked me to be a kobold in any of my games, so I don't know a lot. I can't.
They
really
have
put my
I
opinion
think
out
it's
there
a
on them.
-4 to strength.
Really?
they're not a very.
Yeah, they've got like a really.
Do they get extra buffs because of that, or no?
They get. I think it's like a +2 to Dex, a -4 to Strength, and that's all for stats. I think.
Where's my bolos?
Mm.
I'll tell you in a second. Oh, so
I do, however, I have a modified homebrew version of the Kobold called Kobold version 2.0 or 2.1 that has like different sub races of the kobolds, and I love them. There's a Dragonheart one, they can fly, and they have a once per day use of the Color Spray spell, which Color Spray, you poor underused spell. They also there's one of them that focus on spear using. So the entire idea is that they're like Spartans, so they're in like in a phalanx position, and they march in like little squads of 16 4x4 units. They were adorable. They were an adorable entity in the world.
That sounds cute.
Yeah, and then they have the scrap ones who like they live in scrap yards and they just steal shit and build stuff. That's how we get Surtail. Surtail is best kobold because Surtail built Fazurzu. And yes, I did steal
Tail
Fazurzu.
is Stitch?
He was a mix between Stitch and Jar Jar in terms of voice. If Jar Jar could be bearable, I won't lie, it was a challenge.
Jar Jar could be bearable.
Jar Jar Binks is an abomination.
I know.
I love Jar Jar
No.
Binks.
But no, so
I love him because he's annoying, and I relate.
You're not annoying.
but you're not that annoying.
Doubtful.
That's your anxiety talking.
Anxiety what now?
Anyways.
What's some other underused races?
God, I've only recently started seeing Kenku.
We kind of talked about Goliaths, but we really didn't go into detail, and I love them. And Fearbolgs, too.
Oh, the Fearbolgs.
Fear?
Furbolgs?
Okay, I did say that right.
I call them Fearbolgs.
I'm going to look at the name for a second, and I'm going to spell Firbolg. Firbolg?
Yeah, Fearbolt.
Ugh. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of older, where it was FUR. Sorry. Actually, no. I'm thinking of World of Warcraft. God damn it, you MMOs! Get out of my head!
Yeah. Because I feel like races with races it's either we have to go in depth on like each individual race, but like since we're talking about world building, find what races fit. Don't be afraid to ban certain races. I hardly ever allow changeling. I dislike changeling for new players because I haven't seen anyone be able to pull a correct changeling.
That's fair.
Like I've had so many times to ban a changeling from players because it's like I don't think you understand what a changeling is. And they're like, no, but it's this. And it's like, no, that's not how they work.
They're bullshit. That's what they are.
They kind of are.
I was gonna say I most of the time just ban Dark Elves because if I see another Drit Steward in clone, I'm stabbing someone and then setting them on fire.
Oh yes, Drit Steward and clones.
That's fair.
Oh god.
But actually,
I mean, I'm not gonna blame that person though. I love Dritst. Dritst was cool.
Dritst was awesome. There's a
Yeah,
reason he's
then-
popular.
Then we had the clones.
that being said, I was actually going to mark the governments for the next time we start recording because I am starving because I am out of mozzarella sticks and I am also out of jalapeno bites. And yeah,
A man
I
with
want
no
pizza.
snacks is a man who doesn't want to record.
I need snacks, god damn it.
I mean, me too. I'm ready to get me some Cape Cod chips.
I'm full, and I'm still staring at the 2 burgers that were part of the pack that I made.
Oh, just give me one.
Here, reach through the camera.
Yeah, I'll do that.